Welcome to the Intimacy Unlocked podcast. I'm Serena Haines, your everything to do with sex coach, and I'm here to answer all of your juiciest sex questions. Hello, lovers, and welcome back to the Intimacy Unlocked podcast. I'm Serena Haines, your everything to do with sex coach, and we're going to get into your questions today. But the first thing we're going to do is actually, from a couple of weeks ago, we had a question come in through voicemail, and they reached back out to me with a follow-up, and I really kind of wanted to read that out. I love when you guys follow up with these questions. So listen, I'm just going to read it. It's kind of long, but I really want to get into this because it makes so much more sense, honest to God, now that I have this full follow-up. So it says, confession. Serena, I'm following up from my confession that was my husband being interested in exploring a same-sex scenario. I wanted to elaborate a bit on the situation and tell you what has happened since then. You had wondered what the origin of my fantasy about seeing my husband with another man was. I was never interested in doing anything with another man myself. I was turned on by the idea of him being turned on by something that I knew was so outside of his comfort zone. So that's a mouthful right there. Like the quote taboo nature of it, even though, of course, there's nothing wrong about it. We have watched gay sex porn together, and we ended up buying a strap-on to explore the idea together. Serena, I have to be honest. I hated using the strap-on with him. I found myself feeling, for lack of a better word, quote, wrong. I can't even really understand it, but I had a weird negative emotional reaction to it. And the problem is that it has kind of destroyed a fantasy for me now, something that I spent years imagining and being turned on by, and is now something I don't enjoy thinking about. So that is a really detailed, cool follow-up. And I really appreciate you being really vulnerable about that, because that's a lot of detail that you gave me. And in the voice note that we had a little while ago, you're right. Like I kind of took what you were saying and I thought that maybe it was you wanting to be with this other man as well. And we talked about a little bit about that, and that's how I answered the question. So first of all, everyone, this is a great example of how, when I answer these questions, if there's something that you want to follow up on and you need some more clarity on it, reach out, send another question, send another voicemail. Let me know what you're talking about, and let's get down to the root of this stuff for you. That's why I'm here. So the idea is now, the bottom line is that they tried it. They tried the strap-on. She really didn't like it. Without having you here and having these, really kind of deep conversations about where did your scripts come from? Where do the narratives come from? Where did you learn about sex? What's the history behind how you feel about taboo and all of those things? You said that, for lack of a better word, it was wrong. I mean, that just it's just a shameful word, right? So there's something in your body that feels really shameful about what you were doing. And that can come from so many different places, especially in, this is kind of a stereotypical outside of the box kinky thing for a straight couple to do, right? So of course it's going to feel strange to you. Of course it's going to feel different for you. There'd be so many different layers of what you guys experienced together that we could talk about, right? I mean, one of them just maybe being the fact that, you've always been, quote, in the submissive role or in the feminine role of being in your heterosexual relationship. And now that you have the strap-on, now you've got to kind of tap into your masculine energy, and maybe that just doesn't feel authentic to you. And that's okay, right? It's an okay feeling if you're not that person. Cool. If it's the fact that you were witnessing your husband receiving something that is very taboo, right? And stereotypically not what, quote, straight men should want, which is a lie. It's a crock of shit. Every straight man should have something put up their asshole. As far as I'm concerned, you are missing out on so much. Guys, listen, we'll get into it. We'll do an anal episode, but you are missing out on so much. Anyway, But witnessing that for yourself, I mean, that could have been something that, just didn't make you feel very good as well. Not to mention all of the scripts and narratives and mental, things that we have to go through to talk about that. So thank you for the follow-up. We can't really kind of pick it apart too much right now, but if this was ever something, if you guys ever hear me talk about something that you really want to do a little one-on-one with, a little, some coaching on that, reach out to me at serenahaines.com. You can book your one-on-one session. It can be a one-off session. You can book some monthly packages with me. We can have these conversations, and I'm here for that as well, so you don't have to feel lost. I really do want to be here for you. So thank you for that follow-up. Let's get into a couple of questions. All right. Okay, so I love when the questions are just so simple, just easy. You can tell that people are like, God damn it, what is this? So it's just, what's the deal with all this tantric stuff I hear about? So tantric sex, I don't know. Okay, Sarah, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you remember back in the day, American Pie, and what's his name was having sex with Stifler's mom, and he came out and he was rubbing all the plants, and he was like, "Oh, he had so much sex. I've been orgasming for like 12 hours."
Yes.
And everybody thinks that that's what tantric sex is. Mm-hmm. Like if you could walk around and like rub your fridge and have an orgasm, I think I would probably want to do that too.
It's the longevity aspect. That's the assumption.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, and it really is. So tantric sex in our Western world, if you will, that's the idea that we get, is that we're going to have these prolonged orgasms, but those orgasms are going to last while you're walking around the grocery store, or you're out for dinner, or you're at the playground, or whatever. Maybe don't have the orgasms at the playground. Oh, shit. Anyways, so the tantric sex that we're thinking about having, that's what we get, right? We get it from the movies and all this stuff. And the Kama Sutra. Everybody's heard of the Kama Sutra before. It's this book of, I'm not even quite sure, I really should know this in my line of work, let's look that up. X number of sex positions, but they were created and made with your energy involved. Okay, so we're going to get into that in a second. But anyways, so what is this tantric sex stuff we're hearing all about? In the Western world, tantric sex is positioned as something that is like the be-all, end-all of a sex position, right? Maybe, or the kind of sex that you're having. A tantric practice in general is really just this practice of weaving together your mind, body, and spirit. So we can create tantric practices throughout our day if you really want to kind of dive into it and study into it a little bit, and just how mindfulness and presence can bring you into a different state of consciousness, which doesn't mean that you're seeing stars and, you're hallucinating and you're in this, crazy transcendental meditation all the time. It really just means that you can see the world in a little bit of a different way. And then imagine then bringing that presence and that mindfulness into the bedroom with you, and how that can expand your pleasure. So it's not just for like, quote, practitioners or anybody who practices a certain spirituality, right? So tantric sex can be a long, prolonged massage. So we talked about in last week's episode, we talked all about the art of hand play and what it meant to kind of like touch somebody's body and stimulate their senses and bring them to a place that was less goal oriented and a lot more presence and pleasure within every single touch. So if you can bring that into your practice in the bedroom, then bravo, you've created a tantric practice for yourself. Now, when it comes to like the Kama Sutra, these positions were created and used to center our energies together with our partners in order to expand your pleasure potential. So, for example, one of the most classic positions that you'll see in like Kama Sutra or talking about tantric sex is called a yabyum. And it really is just one partner sitting on the bottom and the other partner, generally it's the female, or like in the pictures, it's the female or the smaller partner on top of that partner, just sitting on their lap with their legs wrapped around, right? So a lot of people have seen that position around. And if you are in penetration, if there's penetration or genital to genital contact, that position is connecting so many of our, well, all of our energy centers, from our root chakras, and our genitals are touching our sacral chakra, all the way up through like our bellies are touching each other, and then your chest and your breasts and your heart space are one and one touching one another. And then it gives this beautiful space for you to kind of be kissing one another, and your third eye can be together. So it's just this perfect, beautiful space that, you know, typically, if we were going to talk about Kama Sutra, we would think about. There are so many other Kama Sutra positions. I do have a little pocket Kama Sutra book that I really should always have on me. I should have it on me at all times. How fun. What a fun bar trick. Like, what a fun little party trick to like pop out the Kama Sutra and be like, oh, hey, this would be so fun. So
also there's 64 apparently in 64. The original.
Okay.
And also, I just want to say, I always thought it was Karma Sutra.
No, Kama Sutra.
I'm having a moment.
Mind blowing.
Whoops. Been saying that wrong this whole time.
Well, a lot of people do, but it's the Kama Sutra.
Oh my gosh, that's interesting.
So 64 positions. We need to add 5 more.
I was just thinking that. They couldn't go up to 5 to make it 69.
That's funny. But a 69 is actually a really cool tantric position as well. And not to go off on a tangent, but I'm going to go off on a tangent for a minute. 69 gets a really bad rap. I don't know. Do you find that people talk about 69 in like a good way or a bad way?
I think it gets a bad rap.
It does.
I think it's seen as inefficient.
Yeah. And I think that's ridiculous. And I'll tell you, well, why do you, okay, wait, she's got some faces on her. Tell me why.
I think it takes a very confident 2 people.
Okay.
To do it and feel relaxed.
Okay.
I think because of the positioning.
Yeah.
It's
intimate.
Very intimate.
Yeah.
So I think it all depends on the person.
Yeah.
But I think that's the main like complaint or the main problem with it is just like, it's a lot, but also I'm ADHD and I can't be doing...
I would think that would be amazing. There's so much going on at one time.
No, that would be tough for me. I would get distracted.
Oh, yeah, fair.
And not be able to then focus.
Yeah, okay,
fair. Or the other way around.
Fair. Okay, so listen, if you're listening to this, go to our show notes at the end of this and go to the anonymous form. And I want to hear what everybody thinks of 69. Tell me if you're a yay or nay. Tell me if you love the 69. Tell me if you think it's just a waste of your time. I'll tell you that I love a 69, but it's because the lessons that I'm here to teach you, I like to practice as well. And sex for me is not always about an end goal. So for me, extending that pleasure and that intimacy and that eroticism that comes with touching another person's body and feeling the way that they respond under your touch and the way they respond under your kisses, and that's part of the eroticism for me. So when I'm in 69, you said it's not that efficient. I go, no, it's not that efficient. But I think that's the whole point. That's kind of why I like it. Like, it actually prolongs everything and slows everybody down, because there's not a lot of people. Some people can, of course, focus on, coming and giving at the same time. Cool. But if you do find that it's prolonging it and you don't find it efficient, think about it and reframe it and be like, this is how we're going to prolong this pleasure potential.
It's foreplay on steroids.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing too is I find the people who like 69ing really like it. Like, it has a polarizing fan base.
That's true. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's either like, I'm definitely going to like bury my face in your muff and we're going to do this like forever, or I cannot, like, don't even think about it. Especially the positioning, I think, for certain people, like, I think even same-sex couples have like the could have such a like the best time because you know what body parts are going in each other's faces. Right. But sometimes like for women who come to me and they're like, where are they supposed to go? Are they supposed to like be on top of me? Is there like a ball sack in my face? Do they lie down? Do I sit on their face? What's going to happen with my ass is in their face? Is my asshole literally in their nose? Like what is happening right now? And I get that. Like I totally understand. But if you can just imagine for a minute, 69 on your side, not one on top of the other, 69 on your side, allowing some space and then just sitting there and getting into this tantric positioning of breathing really deep and slowing everything down because you are kind of distracted about what's going on and allowing yourself the back and forth of, I'm going to give a little bit right now, but now something feels really good for me. So I'm going to back off giving and just receive for a minute. But now, oh my God, I'm so turned on and like his dick is in my mouth already. So I'm just going to do a little bit more for them because it's such a turn on for me. And just this sharing of back and forth pleasure all the time. I don't know. I think it's lovely. Anyway, what's the deal with the tantric sex stuff? Slow down, allow yourself some presence and mindfulness. And that is the basis of most of this tantric sex that you're hearing about in our culture and in our society today. All right. So the next thing we're going to get into is, I'm not even going to tell you. Let's get the voicemail up. We got a voicemail on this one and I'm so excited.
Hi, Serena and Sarah. Here's my question. Can you please tell me what is the deal with female squirting? What is it? Where does it come from? Is it just pee? Please tell me the ins and outs.
I also want to say this is probably one of the most common questions that you get. Yeah. I hang around you a lot at your events and I hear what people ask you. This comes up every time.
Every single time. Yeah. Nobody knows what squirting is. I mean that. Literally nobody knows what squirting is. So if you don't know, you're in good company. The big fancy scientists in the white coats that have the MRIs, we still don't know what it is. Okay. But for real, let me tell you what we think it is. Okay. So squirting, for anybody who doesn't know, who's listening, squirting is when a person with a vulva expels a good amount of fluid. Okay, so maybe a teaspoon, maybe a liter. It could be anything in between that, all right? But it's a clear, generally clear fluid, generally scent-free, generally tasteless, okay? That depends on the person who's squirting, what you've had for lunch, what you had, for supper the night before, all kinds of things. We know how this works, right, guys? Like, we hear the pineapple juice and the cranberry juice and all of this kind of stuff can change the way that your body tastes. And it's the same with your squirt fluid. Now, squirting and orgasm are two different things. A person can squirt this fluid, which we'll get into a little bit more detail about in a minute, or they can have an orgasm, or they can have an orgasm and squirt at the same time. But none of that has to happen together, right? Somebody can just have an orgasm that's what we call dry, but it's not dry at all. And then you can squirt this fluid without having an orgasm at all. So there are some people who will say, I'm a squirter. I squirt all the time, but I don't have orgasms. And their partners, if I'm in with a couple sometimes, or I'll hear from people, the partners, and they'll say, there's no way you're not orgasming if you're squirting like that. They can't wrap their heads around it. But I'm here to tell you, you've heard it here first or fourth. Squirting and orgasm are two different things, okay? So what is squirt? We don't know what squirt is, okay? It's a combination of urea, which is a little bit of urine, okay? Don't panic. Some glucose, some prostatic fluid that we have in there. There's a couple of other different fluids that are in our bodies. Where does it come from? We don't know. Except we do know that we have Skene's glands, which are little grape, like tiny, tiny, tiny. They look like a little bunch of grapes, and they would be on the inside. Let me get my trusty Venus model from Granville Biomedical. If you go inside a vagina about, a half an inch, and push up, that's where we stereotypically talk about where the G spot is. Now, if you listen to me, you know full well that the G spot is not a spot. It's an area. It's a huge area, and it can be anywhere for people's pleasure. However, this one spot where the Skene's glands lives, anatomically speaking, is about an inch in and then up on the anterior wall of the vaginal canal. Okay, so anterior just means top, right? In front of. So up on top. If you push up, you might be able to feel that. If somebody squirts and it's like a teaspoon or a tablespoon, or it's just like a little dribble, you still squirted. So yay, you're still a squirter. Some people want to quantify that, like, I'm not a squirter. I didn't shoot it across the room. I'm not a squirter. I didn't fill his face up. No, you don't have to. Even if you feel this little tiny dribble of liquid, if you can feel it, you have squirted, is probably a good rule of thumb. Usually when we come, we cream, right? And that cream, it is creamy. It's white. It's usually on the inside. It's a thicker fluid, and it usually stays put. It sometimes seeps out, of course, when we're playing around, but it doesn't get expelled from our bodies the way that squirt would. So if you can feel that squirt, congratulations, you're a squirter, and I love that for you. But yeah, so those Skene's glands, they fill up with fluid, and sometimes if they're stimulated, they can expel this fluid. Squirt comes out of your urethra, where you pee from. It does not come out of your vagina. So your cum will come out of your vagina, your ejaculate. That's a hard word because some people call squirting ejaculate and some people call creaming ejaculate. So let's just call it cream and squirt. You know what's coming. I'd rather cream than squirt. It's my favorite. And anyway, okay, regardless. So the squirt comes from your urethra. There was a scientific study done. There's been several, but there was the one scientific study that I talk about quite a bit where they had women come into the scientific lab, empty their bladders. They went into an MRI. Or an ultrasound. I think they did ultrasound. They did ultrasound. They looked at the bladders. The bladders were completely empty. They filled the bladder, not filled. They put blue dye in the bladder, up through the urethra in the bladder. So what they were testing for was if this fluid actually comes out of the bladder or if it comes out of something different. So then these women stimulated themselves to squirting. And when they squirted, guess what? Ta-da, blue liquid. So we knew that it came out of the bladder and we knew it came out of the urethra. The other thing that they noticed in this was that during stimulation, their bladders, quote, filled up with fluid exponentially fast. So here's the deal. If you are with a partner and you have, emptied your bladder before you started fooling around, and now it's like a half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour later, I don't know about any of you ladies out there, but my little squirrel bladder fills up with fluid within a half an hour anyway, like regardless. So if there's some stimulation going on and that's going to fill it up even more, then yeah, it could, that could happen. If you were to ask my opinion on it, I would say this is literally opinion, disclaimer, opinion. Okay. Say it one more time. God damn it. This is just an opinion and an educated guess, is that when we are stimulated in the way that we have to be stimulated in order to squirt, which we'll get into now in a minute, we are pushing on the urethra. We're stimulating that area of our bodies. That area of our body is also an erectile bed, so it's full of blood. Within that erectile bed is these Skene's glands I was talking about. So we're getting into a lot of anatomy. The entire clito-urethral, vaginal area, it's all connected, right? We seem to think for some reason that if you stick your fingers in a vagina, you're not going to somehow stimulate the bladder. But you will, because you're touching the backside of the urethral sponge, which is where all of your pee comes out. So my educated guess is that we get so engorged with blood and fluid that everything is spongy and everything is full. You're inserting, usually is what happens. Some people can squirt using their clitoris too, and we're going to talk about that. And once you're stimulated so much, everything just starts spasming a little bit. Maybe you feel it, maybe you don't, right? It could be something that we don't really perceive, but it's happening in our bodies anyway. And as the Skene's glands are releasing these fluids, our urethra also kind of loosens and opens because it's generally shut when we're having orgasm. And then maybe some of that fluid comes out as well. Again, opinion, educated guess. We don't know. All I know is that it feels great if you can do it. Every single person with a vulva can squirt. Not every single person with a vulva will squirt. Okay? So just know that. You're not broken. You're not supposed to do it. It's not supposed to be that the epitome of everything. Porn has given us this really grandiose version of what squirting looks like. And it's like a pretty rough shoulder movement and fingers going in and out and toys going in and out, and there's squirt everywhere. Everything's soaked and nobody stops when people stop squirting. Squirting can be just as easy as, you're riding your partner or maybe they're fingering you and you just feel this beautiful sense of pressure, and then that pressure just gets released and it's a little tablespoon of fluid that comes out and your whole body just goes, that felt nice. And that's it. And that's all. It doesn't have to be this fucking big production that everybody is making it out to be. So if you've even had that little tablespoon of fluid, congratulations, you're a squirter. And you can tell your friends. Now, I'm going to continue to answer this question because there's another one that came in. And I'm going to read this question out and then we're going to kind of continue on. So this could be the squirt episode. I'm an older woman who has never squirted. Many partners and myself have tried to make it happen, and I could feel like it was there, but just out of reach. I've given up and accepted I'm just not a squirter. I met a guy a couple of weeks ago, and we've really hit it off. When we were having sex, he was really focused on foreplay and fingering and oral, and suddenly I saw stars, and I heard a very wet sound down there. I squirted. I just want to be like, I squirted. While it wasn't a soak the sheets, it definitely happened, and my partner said he felt it. So now I'm wondering, how the hell can I recreate that moment, or is it likely going to be a one-time thing? Also, did I actually squirt if it wasn't a lot of fluid? Any tips to take it to the next level so I drench him next time? She's like, I want to drench him next time. And you know what? So you should want to, and that's totally fine. But to answer your questions backwards, yes, it was squirt, even if it was not a lot of fluid. Yes, you can drench him if you want, but you don't have to. So now I'm going to touch on the fact that you said this guy really focused on foreplay and fingering and oral. And then you said, and suddenly I saw stars. But guess what, babe? I bet it wasn't suddenly. I bet he was down there doing some stuff with a lot of patience and a lot of control and a lot of appreciation for your body and a lot of affirmation and a lot of, oh my God, baby, this feels so good. And a lot of you're so wet and a lot of take your time and a lot of I love it down here and a lot of you taste so good. All of those things, if you're with a person with a vulva, those are the most erotic things that they can hear. Okay. You taste so good. You smell so good. I could do this for hours. That one right there, the pressure that we have on ourselves to orgasm sometimes is astronomical. And that pressure, we talk a lot about men or people with penises that have like delayed ejaculation and they get in their heads or they have erectile, issues and they can't get their heart on back and because they get in their heads. Women and people with vulvas have been not having orgasms for centuries, millennia, if you will, because we are literally just in our heads because it's been taught to everybody around that it should happen so quickly, but it shouldn't happen that quickly. It actually should, textbook wise, it takes, I think it's like 14 to 27 minutes or something on the low end, like on the quicker end of a person with a vulva being able to have any sort of orgasm or any sort of, erotic expulsion like that. So we really need to take our time. So my friend, you were able to squirt, I would imagine, because you found a person who was really focused on you, who knew that fingering, so using his hands and using his mouth and likely making out with you was the way to get you to where you needed to be. It wasn't just like a really quick, like drive your fingers in, move them around like 4 or 5 times like you were digging a hole and then expect something to happen. And suddenly I saw stars and I heard a very wet sound down there. So those stars, I mean, hopefully maybe you had a little orgasm while you were at it. I mean, that would have been awesome as well. So my tips for you taking it to the next level so you can drench him next time would be extend that foreplay. Be really patient. If you're the partner who's with somebody and you're trying to get to a place like that, be really patient, have a lot of control, lots of words of affirmation. If you're the person who wants to get there, focus on the sensations, right? So a lot of the time what happens is we get into these spaces and we're starting to feel the pleasure build and we're starting to feel the pleasure build. And then all of a sudden that thought pops in your head, right? Okay, here we go. This is it. Now I'm going to come. Now I'm going to squirt. I wonder if I'm going to squirt this time. I don't know if I'm going to. Oh my God, did he just move? I don't know and then it's gone. And then somebody goes, and I lost my orgasm and I don't know why. And I go, well, I know why. Because you just had a full on fucking dialogue in your head when you really should have just been focusing on your pussy a little bit more. So when we get to those points, the biggest tip that I tell people is instead of using language and verbalizing what's happening and kind of narrating what's happening in your head, because that's what ends up happening for us, is focus on a sensation and actually what that sensation is. So if your partner's going down on you, not thinking to yourself, they're going down on me, I feel their tongue. Think to yourself, warm, wet, soft, gentle, maybe it's a little bit more aggressive, whatever that is, like firm, pressure, grinding. Think about those sensations that are happening in your body and allow yourself to sit in them for a little while. Has anybody ever out there like had a massage and like you're 45 minutes into the massage and you finally relax? 45 minutes into the massage. You've got to try to train yourself to start relaxing a little bit sooner, right? And then when it comes to the actual techniques to do it, for you, it sounds like your partner probably has a good idea of what to do. But, the idea is that come hither motion. So if we're fingering our partners, to kind of put your fingers in 1 to 2 inches and then bring them back in like a come here motion on the top part, that backside of the urethral sponge is where that erectile tissue is. So you want to stimulate that. But you don't have to be pulling on it all the time. And some people think they do because, again, porn. Thanks a lot, porn. But you can just take your fingers and push up on that toward their belly. Just, maybe firm, maybe gentle. And you can start kind of like pushing and moving your fingers around instead of pulling and scraping, because sometimes it ends up being scraping and you don't really realize it, and nobody really likes that. So just kind of push and like pushing those little buttons. Now, the other tip that I want to give you guys is nobody talks about, and I don't know why it's not talked about more, because we always talk about squirting from internal stimulation. But if you have a wand specifically, clit suckers are great too, but if you have a wand, a big one, this guy's from WeVibe and it's really amazing. It's like the whole thing rumbles. It's got this huge head on it. It's like the size of my fist, but then the whole shaft of the vibrator itself is the wand too. And it rumbles as well. And it's a really deep rumble. And I love that. But if you take a wand and you place it directly on your clitoris, some people out there are going to be like, you're literally going to screech when you hear me say that. But give yourself a minute. Maybe it's on like just the top of your clitoris. Maybe it's like closer to your pubic mound. You'll know your spot, right? Some people like it a little to the left. Did you know that like the top left-hand quadrant of your clitoris is the most sensitive? It has the most nerve endings, which is such a crazy thing that people know, because the glands of the clitoris is so small, but we can actually map that out, which is cool. Anyway, take your vibrator, put it on your clitoris, take some deep breaths, and just see how long you can last with that vibrator on your clitoris. I had never squirted before in my life until I did this one day with my wand, not meaning to squirt, not meaning to do anything. And all of a sudden I was like, what the hell just happened? And I squirt everywhere. And I was like, Jesus, okay, so this is different. It doesn't happen every single time, but sometimes it can. And if you're really in the mood and you put it there and you kind of have that intention behind it, then it can happen. So if you are finding that the internal stimulation is not working for you, but you would really like to learn how to squirt a little bit more, better, whatever word you want to use to quantify that, try a vibrator on the outside. That's my tip. Thank you for that question. That was good. We just had a lot of squirting questions, and we will always talk about squirting because I absolutely love it. All right, moving on to blowjobs though, because those are fun. So here's a big long one. It says, "Okay, Serena." Every time I see that come in, I go, "Oh damn, what's about to happen?"
That's what we need to call this. Okay, Serena.
Okay, Serena. I love your podcast. Well, thank you so much. Much like you, I love sex. Great. My question for you is about blowjobs. My husband and I have been together for 14 years. Congratulations. We have what we both feel is a very good sex life. Very open and transparent, toys, hands, and lots of love. But oral for us is generally off the table. He doesn't do that for me, and I don't do it for him. I personally do not love the idea of a blowjob. I had a horrible first experience with a partner, not my husband, and since then I just hate the idea. I have definitely used my mouth on my husband, but not to the point of orgasm. It's just more oral play, not play to come, if that makes any sense. I'd really love to be able to blow his mind, but I've honestly had zero experiences with blowjobs. I'm scared I'm going to gag when he comes and ruin it for both of us. I hate the consistency of cum, and I cannot get over the idea and the ick of having it in my mouth. Help.
I wrote it.
I'm like, okay. We don't have to love the cum, okay? You're not alone, I think is what I'm trying to say. I'm giggling, but I think what I'm trying to say is you're not alone if you don't like cum in your mouth, okay? Hold on. I'm trying to get my dick.
That's so reassuring.
Yes, so reassuring. It's okay if you don't like cum in your mouth. The consistency is a little off, right? And I mean, especially if it's not something that you love doing, and then especially depending on your partner's habits and eating habits, and are they a smoker? Do they drink coffee? Like, so many things affect how we all smell and taste down there. And when, as people with vulvas, we have our stuff that expels from us. Yes, like the cum and the squirt that we were just talking about, but it's not so condensed. And I think that, the guys, the people who are coming and ejaculating or get a bad rap, because of course it does. It all just comes out in one glob, right? And you kind of have to deal with it. But ours comes out over time, and it sometimes doesn't seem that way. But I guarantee you that, if we were to cream in one big glob, it would probably be it would be the same consistency, and it would be the same thing. So you're not alone when you think that you don't want to have that in your mouth. That's totally okay. I'm going to work backwards in this. You're scared to come, or you're scared to gag when he comes and ruin it for us both. So here's the thing. He's your husband, and you guys have been together for 14 years, and you have practiced and played, and you've probably gone through a heck of a lot of stuff. You're not going to ruin anything, okay? At all. And he's not going to make you feel that way. I don't know you guys, but by the sound, like, this was a long question. You put in a lot of detail. I don't think that you're in that kind of relationship. Okay. So if that's something that you're worried about, as hard as it is for me to just say, get over it. I know it's not that easy, but I want you to think to yourself, how many things have I gone through with this man? What have we had to deal with in our lives? And if I was doing something that he knows is tough for me to do, and I was doing my very best at it, going down on him, and something happened and I couldn't take his cum in my mouth, would it actually ruin it for him, or would he be appreciative of the effort that I was putting in to begin with? I think your answer is yes. If your answer is no, that's a bigger problem, and you're going to need to have that conversation with either, your sex coach or your partner, okay? Because we can't have that in our relationships. The second thing, or the other thing that you said is, I've definitely used my mouth on my husband, but not to the point of orgasm. It's more like just oral play and not play to come. So here's the other thing that, the other myth that we have about oral, and again, I'll thank porn for that, is that oral on a man always has to, be for him to come, okay? When people go down on vulvas and women, that's not like, I guarantee you that that's not the reason they're going down there. They're not planning on staying down there for 45 minutes to an hour to make you come. They're going down because it's part of foreplay. Now, would it be lovely if you have a partner who wants to go down until you come? Yeah, of course. And yes, you guys are out there. I understand that. That's not what I'm saying. But the fact that so many people in heterosexual relationships, so many women think that the only way to give a good, quote, good or like good blowjob is to make sure that they come in your mouth, is because that's what they do in porn. And those people are trained professionals, okay? That is not real life. We don't learn how to drive by watching The Fast and the Furious. We don't learn how to have sex by watching porn, okay? Tattoo it somewhere. Put it on a big poster on your wall. That porn is for fun. It is just entertainment, and it's not how things go down. So the fact that you said, I definitely use my mouth on my husband, but it's oral play not to come, you've given a blowjob, babe. That is a blowjob. You can give a blowjob with just putting your mouth on your partner without it being for them to come. Like, you can just go down there and lick and kiss and suck and stroke and have a really good time down there. And that's still a blowjob. So congratulations, you have given a blowjob. The other thing is that blowjobs don't have to be A, until they come, but B, they don't have to come in your mouth, right? So like, you can be giving a blowjob. The most, quote, beginner way of giving a blowjob is giving a hand job while your mouth is down there, licking maybe the head of the penis, the corona, using your tongue around the coronal ridge, the underside, the ridge, or on the frenulum, which is that little V shape on the back of the penis, on the underside of the penis. Using your mouth just on the head of that, you don't even have to put it past your teeth. Just using your lips and your tongue, and then your hand with a lube, just going up and down on that, simulating what it would feel like for either intercourse or like a full mouth or full throat blowjob, whatever that is. Giving a nice hand job while you're licking and sucking the glands of the penis, the head of the penis. And then if your partner is going to come, you can take your face away and just kind of jerk them off until they come. And it can be close to your face, or maybe on your chest, or maybe on your cheek, or maybe in your hand, or maybe on their chest, whatever. And that can be really erotic for your partner as well. It doesn't have to be in your mouth. Now, if your partner has said to you, I would like to come in your mouth, then you can try that. And here's the tip that I have. Sarah leaned in. Now, after saying you don't have to take the penis all the way in your mouth, the only way that this works is if you can take the penis in your mouth. But if you can take it in your mouth and get that as far back in your throat as possible, and just have them come in the back of your throat without it having to touch your tongue, and then you just swallow as fast as you can, like you did when you took penicillin when you were a kid, then you can come in my mouth, okay? And then you can have that sensation of your partner being able to come in your mouth. I personally don't have any other tips and tricks. I don't know if anybody out there wants to like go into the show notes to our anonymous form. Give us your best tips and tricks for taking cum in your mouth. I think it's a PSA. I think we need to do this one.
You need to crack the code on this.
Yeah.
Because I'm not good. Like, for me specifically, I'm not someone who does shots. I struggled taking, like, it's just not for me.
Right. Yeah.
So I keep trying to figure out how I can. It's almost like, how can you spit in a sexy way?
Yeah. Okay.
That's another.
But you can, right?
Yeah.
You can spit in a sexy, well, it doesn't have to be sexy, but you literally can just take it and
spit it right back in their face.
And just spit it right. Well, you can. Some people really like that. Sarah, some people really like that.
Like a baby bird.
Yeah. It's called something. Wait, it's leaving me now. God.
Is it not like baby birding?
No. It's called something. Shit. Guys, this is a fun episode. Interact with me. Come at me and tell me, what is it when you have the cum in your mouth and then you share the cum back and forth? We could Urban Dictionary or like Reddit this or something. But anyway, you can do that. But the other thing is, and it sounds so crass when I say it like this, but if you do want to spit, you can, if it goes in your mouth and it's just on your lips, if you make a little spoon with your tongue, how you like, you make a little like divot in your tongue. If you can take it right in the middle of your tongue, then it's quite a lot easier then to kind of spit that out all in one fell swoop. It's just right there and you just kind of spit it. I always say, people are like, well, where do I spit it, Serena? You could spit it anywhere you want. However, I always say, what do we need next to our bedside table? Your lube, a little wet cloth, some wet wipes, a towel. All of those things should be there, like in your bedside table, ready to go always.
It's called the snowball.
The snowball. Yes, I knew it had something to do with snowing. So it's like snowball. It's like sharing that cum back and forth all the time. And some people really, really love that. So the bedside checklist, right? It's a towel, like a little hand towel, or a big towel too, but definitely a hand towel, a warm, damp cloth, which is probably not gonna be warm by the time you're finished with it, but a little damp face cloth. And some wet wipes, and then your lube, and of course your condoms and whatever else, and your toys and everything else that you're going to use. So this should be like, you should be replenishing that. Like, how we do like our TikTok and we do like our Sunday refreshes and we watch everybody fucking vacuum their houses because it's so satisfying to watch other people do that shit, but you never do it yourself. No, that's just me. So anyway, I watch everybody's Sunday refresh and I think it's just so amazing. Do a little Sunday reset on your sex table, and in your bedside table, put in a fresh cloth, fresh towel, condoms, lube, whatever it is that you're going to do, and just make sure that they're all there and ready for you to go. So now a couple of techniques just for somebody who doesn't want to take a penis in their mouth the entire way. I kind of talked about a couple already, but I'll just go through it again. Like I said, you don't have to even take a penis in your mouth at all, ever. If you kiss and lick up the shaft of a penis, especially on the backside of the penis, around the coronal ridge, on the urethra, and on that frenulum, you can have so much fun doing those things. You can get a flavored lube if you really like flavored lubes. There's some really great ones out there. If you wanted to have something that kind of gave you I tell people, give yourself a reason for doing it, like give yourself something to accomplish, right? So if you put a flavored lube, let's say on the tip of the penis, then you have to lick that off until you're finished, right? Until that task has been accomplished. I say this when I tell people to use honey, but not on your genitals ever. But if we're doing other plays, like take a little bit of honey and put it on your neck or put it on your nipples, and then have your partner do a little pleasure hunt, and they have to find this honey and then they have to clean the honey off your skin. It slows people down because it's so sticky. So if you have a task to do while you're down there, it makes it a little bit easier. Don't forget the balls, okay? The balls are not going to make your partner come. Some people love their balls touched, some people don't at all. You can scratch them, lick them, take them in your mouth. If you take a ball in your mouth or both of the balls in your mouth, you can kind of suck them in. Your partner will tell you what pressure and what they really like, but you don't have to worry about them coming in your mouth if you have balls in your mouth, so that works really well. If you wanted to take a penis fully in your mouth, my suggestion again is make sure your mouth is nice and lubricated, or you're using a flavored lube or something. And stick your tongue out. So many people just want to put it in there with your tongue in there as well. But when we're starting out, sometimes you don't have to have your lips around it. You don't have to be deep throating. You don't have to be doing any of that. Stick your tongue out, lay the penis on your tongue. Just lay that cock on your tongue and just kind of start rolling your head around a little bit, or maybe breathing on it and letting your tongue just kind of feel what's going on down there. And then using your tongue as the pleasure conduit, really, and letting your tongue do its job. So I hope I answered a lot of that question for you. I would like to touch on the fact that he doesn't do it for me either. So if your partner's not going down on you and it's something that you want, but you feel a lot of pressure to go down on them, you might want to have a conversation about that. Now, if you having somebody go down on you is, you don't care, like it's not something that you love, I've been with partners who would give me oral and it just kind of feels like a back rub. It feels lovely, but I'm really not going to get anywhere. And then I've been with partners who, all I do is dream about them going down on me, and that's all I want. So it really just depends on what you want to get out of that oral. But if you are stressed about doing something like this for your partner, but maybe they don't want to do it for you, I would implore you to have that conversation with them and a conversation with yourself with your why. Why do I want to do this? Do I only want to do it for them? Or is there something in it that I want to do it for me? Because guess what? Doing anything is the biggest tip I can give people is to just be enthusiastic. If you're enthusiastic about giving oral, about doing anything, you can't go wrong because you kind of stop, this is going to sound so selfish, but you kind of stop caring about how it feels for the other person and you start doing it because it feels really good to you. And if it feels really good for you, it kind of has no choice but to feel really good for your partner because they're like, God damn, like they really like what they're doing. You don't have to come to have successful sex, everybody. I cannot stress that enough. You can play for hours and hours and hours and just look at your partner and say, do you know what, babe? I don't think I'm going to come today. And that's okay because everything we just did was absolutely friggin' amazing. Okay. I hope that helps. And I hope you have a lot of fun giving new blowjobs. And, reframe. Blowjob just means lick, suck, anything you do with your mouth at all. Okay, next statement, I suppose. It's not really a question, but next statement says, so turns out I'm really into being fisted. Woohoo! That was a fun surprise with a big fisty emoji. That was fun. I really like that one. So fisting, everybody, fisting fam, let's talk about it. Here's the deal. I'm going to assume that this person is talking about having their vagina fisted. Okay. We can also be talking about having our anuses fisted. So there's definitely two different ways of looking at this question. The first one I'm going to go through is vaginal fisting. Anal fisting is not as easy or sometimes as accessible. So it takes a lot more practice and patience to kind of get to that point for most people. So let's just assume we're talking about vaginal fisting for a minute. Vaginal fisting, for anybody who doesn't know, is probably exactly what it sounds like. It's inserting your fist into a vagina pretty much all the way. Pretty much, some people go all the way up to the wrist. Some people would stop like maybe at the fingers. It really depends on your body and the cavity and how turned on you are and what you can do, how big your partner's hands are, all kinds of things. Now, the thing that I want to point out right away is that vaginal fisting is a thing. Giving birth to babies is a thing, and our vaginas can stretch and do magnificent, magical, wondrous things and snap back into place. Maybe not 100% over time, but in general, yeah, there's nothing that we can do to our vaginas, generally speaking, that's going to kind of bring us to a place where it's never going to go back to, I don't want to say normal because normal is different for everybody. That's very relative depending on what you've gone through in your life. But it doesn't mean that if I put a fist in there that now all of a sudden it's going to be open like a fist all the time. No, it's going to snap back just like it did after I had 3 10-pound babies. Okay. Like it's a beautiful, wondrous part of your body. So how do we get to fisting? Let's just talk about that for a second because some people will come to me and be like, oh my God, what do you mean fisting? How the hell am I going to get a fist in there? Well, baby, you don't start on the fist, okay? So we start with just fingering. So somebody would just be maybe fingering you. And then as, we've talked about this now, if you guys are following along, we're building on all of this information, is that as your vagina and your vulva start to get engorged with blood, it becomes very juicy and spongy, much more loose, right? Like we're going to use that word loose, where it feels like it could be elastic and expand. What also happens when we get turned on is something called vaginal tenting. And hormonally, our bodies send a signal to our brain, and then our brain sends a signal back. Anyway, and it vaginal tense. So what it does is our vaginal canal, if you can see me, is probably 2 to 3 inches deep. Most people who have a vagina, if you were to put your finger in there, maybe you're putting a tampon in, you're at an unaroused state, you can probably feel your cervix or maybe the backside of your vagina if you use like your middle finger and you kind of push back a little bit. So it's about that long, about that deep. When we vaginal tent all the way up to about 7 inches. So that means that your uterus actually pulls up into your abdominal cavity out of the way so that your vaginal canal becomes longer and more widened in order to accommodate biologically speaking, the penis in order to procreate, right? So like that's how our bodies are kind of programmed to work. Also, think about that for a second. We're talking about, everybody talks about, I want to be bigger, I want to be bigger, I want to be bigger. But guys, listen, the vagina is only 4 inches deep. Like it's on a good day, right? And on a real good day, it's only 6 inches deep. So anybody more than that, you're stretching it anyway, and that's okay. I'm just saying, like, it's not like there's this, endless abyss of a canal in there that you need to fill. It's a small enclosed space. So anyway, we vaginal tent and all of that comes up. So that's kind of out of the way. So your cervix is out of the way and everything gets bigger. So now we're fingering. So you start with a 1, you start with a 2, you kind of go into the 3. Now, this is the point where some people are like, well, how the heck did we get to a fist? Well, we do what's called kind of like a duck face, right? So if you see me, I've got like my 4 fingers pulled together and then my thumb comes up and kind of closes the circle and it looks kind of like a quack, quack, like a duck. If you were to put the 4 fingers in there, the next thing you do then is put that thumb inside. And when that thumb goes inside, whichever way your wrist is twisted, what that allows you to do is use those 4 fingers on the top and that thumb on the bottom. What you're doing is you're putting those fingers in as far as they go naturally, and then you start to kind of open and close and allow that vagina to open and the pelvic floor muscles to relax. And then eventually you can get those knuckles past there. And when you get the knuckles past there, you're kind of doing the same thing up in the vagina, up in the vaginal canal. And then once it hits the thickest part of your hand, the widest is around where your knuckles and your thumb would be. And then once that's inside, the vaginal opening is around the wrist and the inside of your vaginal canal. There's not a whole lot of nerve endings per se, really far up in there. So what you would be stimulating is the G area, the A spot, the P spot, these really tight little nerve bundles of pleasure that you can find in there, plus the cervix. So some people really love having their cervix stimulated. When you're being fisted, your cervix, interestingly enough, gets a different kind of sensation, because what we usually say when we don't like having our cervix hit, right? And we say, oh, it hurts when they hit my cervix, is because it's such a hard, specific, local kind of like poke almost. But when you're being fisted, your cervix almost gets a little massage. Like there's a whole hand up in there. And whether you keep your hand in the duck position or whether then once you're inside, you can close your fists together, you can still kind of massage around all of these areas, and the surface area of the inside of the vagina with all of these little spots of pleasure gets this like full sensation of being stimulated, rather than having to be like with your fingers, you're poking a little bit, trying to find an area. But when there's something in there large, then you can find the whole area. Use a lube. Holy cow. Use a lube. If you're trying to fisting at all or trying to stretch the vagina for any reason, use a lube. It works. It's going to be your best friend when it comes to that. And especially then when you're taking your hand out, put some lube on your wrist or on the vagina, on the vaginal opening before you take it out as well. It's just going to really help your partner. Now, when it comes to anal fisting, there's a little bit more to that, right? Like your anus, and we haven't really done an anal episode yet, but we will. But your anus is a muscle, right? So there's an outside sphincter, which is the one that we can contract, the external sphincter. There's actually 3, but we talk about kind of 2 in general. And then there's one on the inside that kind of holds everything in. In order to fist an anus, you really have to do a lot of work, a lot of patience, a lot of massage. Now, if that's a practice that you're into often, if it's something that's how you have sex, or if it's something that you do quite often, it's going to be much easier for those muscles to recognize, oh yeah, I can relax. I really like this happening to me. But if this is maybe your first time ever trying anal, please don't think that you're going to get a fist in there. If you do, great. Head to the show notes into the anonymous form. And please, I want to hear that confession and I want to hear how you got there, because that's such a cool story if that's the case. But usually when it comes to our anuses, getting to the place of fisting takes quite a while. So, don't be too hard on yourself, if you will. Okay, so the next question that we have is really kind of a statement as well, but I'm just going to touch on this a little bit. This is a little bit more relational than it is sexual. So it says, I'm in the middle of a breakup. How long should one wait to be friends and avoid entanglement? So, entanglement is kind of this space where if you've ever been in a relationship and you try to end that relationship, it's really, really hard to disentangle yourself from a person that you've shared a lot with, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical, like space, you're living together, friendships, maybe you work together, whatever that is. So imagine yourself entangled with people. And we get entangled with all of our relationships, friendships, family, our dogs. It doesn't matter. We are entangled with them. So to disentangle from somebody that we have history with is a pretty tough thing. So if you're going through a breakup and you want to be friends with somebody, I know this is going to sound so, yeah, that's what they all say, but no contact is the only way. You need to give yourself time and your partner, your ex-partner, time to disentangle from all of that emotional and chemical things that are happening in your body. Because the minute that we have something taken away from us, whether we remove ourselves or not, our bodies start to sense fear, right? It starts to sense instability. And all your body wants and all your brain wants is stability. It's called homeostasis. Our body will work really hard to keep us in a stable position when it comes to our chemicals, hormones, neurotransmitters, everything. So when that person leaves, you'll start to feel, it could be so many different things. And I won't get into all of the, chemicals and neurotransmitters and all that shit, but like all of the feelings that we have. So let's say it's, I'm sitting down and something really good happened and I used to share that with my person, but now my person isn't here anymore. And then all of a sudden your brain starts to replay these memories of your person, and those memories, maybe they're good memories. And then you start to get really excited. And then, your serotonin starts to raise a little bit because you're having these really great memories. And because you have really great memories and your body wants to reach out to them, to share that with them, you can't. Right? It has to be no contact. That entire chemical makeup, it's like heroin. You need to give yourself time to get back to another normal, a new homeostatic place where your body is not relying on that other person to fulfill whatever it is, whatever need it is, whether it's emotional, chemical, physical, whatever that is. Okay. So how long should one wait to be friends? It depends on, everybody is different, but I would definitely say 3 to 6 months. Like, it takes a while. It takes 21 days to make or break a habit, okay, in general. And that's like washing your dishes, which you don't have a heck of a big emotional attachment to, or going to the gym, right? It takes 3 weeks for us to even make or break a habit. When it comes to a relationship, a person, somebody who's really near and dear to our hearts, we need to give each other time to actually move on and create new versions of ourselves in some way before we can come back together. Because if we don't, and we come back together before that new version of ourselves has kind of like made its way into your life comfortably, then you're just going to revert back into old habits and old patterns because your body wants security and it feels safe. Even if it was traumatic, it still feels safe. It's the space that your body wants to be in. So 3 to 6 months for sure, no contact. What does no contact mean? It doesn't mean just not talking. It means you need to block and delete numbers. You need to not look at social media. Social media is the killer. Remember back in the day, I'm old. Back in the day, if I broke up with somebody who I didn't go to school with or even didn't live in my community, I didn't fucking see them for 3 months because you couldn't. But now, my God, you break up with somebody and the next day you can look at their Facebook or their Instagram or their TikTok and you can see them out walking their dog in your favorite place, eating the ice cream. You went to the favorite coffee shop and your brain just goes mad. You need to get it out of your vision completely and then replace it with a new activity, not a new person, just a new activity that keeps you occupied, right? So if you always went to trivia on Thursday nights with your partner, maybe Tuesday nights now you go to a painting class with your best friend. Something. You just kind of replace that with something else that's really healthy for you. So that's my recommendation. But like I said, everybody is different. But if you wanted to talk a little bit more about things like that, again, we can go to serenahaines.com, come on in, and we'll sit down and we'll have a one-on-one. That way I get to learn who you are. I get to learn who your partner was or is, how your relationships are, and what you really need in order to make your way through that. Breakups are a really, really, really hard thing to do. And I don't ever want people to think that they're easy, because they aren't. So my heart goes out to you. That's this week's episode of Intimacy Unlocked, guys. Thank you so much for all of your questions. Thank you for being here with us. Remember, head into those show notes. I want your intimate questions. I want your anonymous questions. They are going to be intimate though. So I want your anonymous questions. We are here for you. Just for you. I want to answer all of your questions. Send us a voicemail. My gosh, do we ever love them? Absolutely love the voicemails. Follow along on Instagram at Serena_Haines. We've got lots of events coming up for the spring and the summer while we're here. So tune in next time, and we're here to unlock all of your intimacy. Thank you for listening to the Intimacy Unlocked podcast, where I'm unlocking your pleasure one question at a time. The key is already in your hands. Are you ready to turn it?